believe if you pray for faith, be conscious of this because God will give you an opportunity to pray or to exercise that faith. He'll give you circumstances to be able to do that. Well, I went to record just a second ago, and what a story that I'm going to tell you is about snapping back into natural state. When something happens that you don't want to happen, how long and how many steps does it take you to snap back into natural state? And for me, I didn't turn on my soundboard. I didn't have any sound, and I had set up the whole entire episode, and then guess what happened? It didn't work. So as I'm talking about the snapping back into natural state, I have to do it. I got to keep a smile on my face. And but I just got a chance to be able to exercise this. So I think one of the greatest things is honestly taking your kids to school and picking them up. You get a chance to be able to talk to them, get some insight from them, all these different things. And I love taking my son, Maddox, and my daughter, McKenna, to school, and I love to be able to pick them up. And one of the things that I find is that we have different conversations, we can connect, all the stuff. Well, we're on our way home the other day, Maddox and I pull up to the stoplight, and I look over, and this guy's about to cross the street, and the car kind of pulls out in front of him a little bit. I don't know who was in the right, but all I knew was the guy started yelling at the car, and the car was like, they kind of waved, and then they just moved on. The car moved on, but the guy didn't. And he stepped into the intersection, and he's still yelling. He's turning around. He's pointing at the car. He's vicious. And then he keeps on walking. And as he's walking by himself, you could just tell he's just throwing his arms in the air. And he's like, oh my gosh, he's almost talking to himself or yelling or telling himself all the things that this car did wrong. And as I'm sitting there, I'm watching, and this sounds bad because all my judgment comes into play. I'm sitting in a car that I like, and I'm sitting with my son who I love, and I'm having a great day, and I'm judging this guy based off of my circumstances, not his. But I'm asking myself, like, how long is it going to take? How many steps is it going to take for this guy to come back to be in his natural state? Well, then it took me down this rabbit hole of, well, what is my natural state? Can I alter it? Could I construct it? Do I get to choose my natural state? And so I went down the rabbit hole in my head, and then the light turned green, and we went home. And, as I was watching this guy, he's still like halfway down the block, and he's still yelling and screaming and doing all this stuff. But it had me ask that question. I thought about it for the rest of the day. It's like, how long does it take me to snap back into natural state when something that happens in my life that I didn't agree with, that I didn't want to happen, or maybe it was a circumstance that just pissed me off? And it was incredible because that day in Proverbs 24, the answers to these questions were in Proverbs 24, but it was from a principle standpoint, not a circumstantial perspective. And that was evergreen. So that's what we're going to dig into today. So why don't we get this party started?
Nothing more on my mind. I got to shine, so every day I grind. Work in the morning, work in the evening. We's achieving, cause we believing. It's for certain, we put the work in. We ain't stopped just because it's hurting. Right before your eyes, so it's coming to no surprise. The takeover is televised. Over and over and over again. Make no mistake, we continue to win. Defeat never known, cause I will not lose. They wanna mimic my moves, but can't walk in my shoes.
How long does it take you to snap back into natural state? I mean, I think that's probably the billion-dollar question. And when things happen that you don't like, or that, puts you in a spot where it makes you uncomfortable, how long does it take to snap back into natural state? Now, I was judging the guy that when I was walking across the street, but I'm just asking you to sit into it today, and I'm asking myself. I just had one of those circumstances happen. I went to film an episode, and as I'm filming it, I realized that the soundboard isn't on, my mic's not on, and it actually won't work. This episode won't work. So I have to stop it. I have to reproduce. I have to do all those things. And how long does it take me to snap back into my natural state? Well, then it could take you down that road, that rabbit hole of, what is your natural state? And sit in it for a second today and ask yourself, what is your natural state? What is it? And then what's the components of that? And can you alter it? Can you choose it? Can you build it? And then Proverbs 24, it's amazing because it answers these questions, but it does it from a principle and not circumstantial perspective, which is evergreen, which means that it doesn't matter the circumstance. When you work principle-based, it's amazing. If you haven't got your tickets to the Vibe Room, it's probably almost too late, but there might be one or two available. It's a live version of the podcast. It's at the Edison House in Salt Lake City on November 9th. It's going to be unbelievable. Make sure that you grab the book. If you don't have the Vibe, the book, get this, but not only get it for yourself. If you own a company, get it for your entire company. You guys read it, and then I could come in and speak about the Vibe in your company, your conference, or your organization, which would be amazing. So love for you to be able to do that. Check out High Fives, Roy Tuscany, High Fives Foundation. This is an incredible foundation helping spinal cord injury victims to experience incredible extreme sports. They were just in Texas surfing at the Surf Ranch, and they're doing that, creating phenomenal experiences, and just an unbelievable human being in Roy Tuscany. And the High Fives Foundation is something that you should be in support of. Everyone is. The podcast is. We love it. So let's jump into Proverbs 24. So, snapping back into natural state, that's the thing. But it was like, okay, so what is my natural state and what are the components that can construct it? And in Proverbs 24, it was talking about this as far as like, you can construct your natural state. You can alter it, but you got to have some components that are in there. In verse 1, 2, 19, and 20, it talks about desire without knowledge creates unsavory situations. Desire without knowledge creates unsavory situations. And this is probably one of the most challenging for myself because they're like, as a kid, I wanted so many things. And then when I found out what it took to get them, it wasn't so exciting. I remember one time my friend bought me a personal trainer. And when she did, it was for Christmas. It's probably the worst gift you could get for somebody, just basically saying you need to work out. But it was cool, and I got to the guy, and he's like, well, what are your desires? I said, I want to look like Brad Pitt. He said, which movie? I said, in Fight Club. I want to look like him. And he's like, cool, so we're going to work out 2 to 3 times a day. You're going to eat this. You're going to do that. This is how many days a week you're going to work out. And I looked at him, and I was like, I don't want to look like Brad Pitt anymore. Because once I found out what it took to be able to get that thing, once I found the knowledge to my desire, I was like, that's not what I want. I'll just buy bigger shirts. And so desire without knowledge creates unsavory situations. So your natural state, guys, one of the biggest things is make sure that the things that you desire, the things that you want, you understand and know what it takes to be able to get them. And if you're okay with that and you're okay with doing it, then continue to desire. If not, switch the desire or switch the work ethic. Either one is completely fine. Bigger shirts work for me. In verse 3 and 4, the filter you use will indicate or will be indicative of the results you receive. This one, oh man, this one hit me, right? And so it's tough to for me in this scenario because I look at it and I'm like, the filter you use will be indicative of the results you receive. So the way in which you view stuff, I got a chance to be able to talk with a bunch of future professionals. And one of the girls, she was telling me, she said, can I be honest with you? Because I use that. She's like, can I be honest with you? I said, yes. How honest can I be? And I was like, well, be 100% honest. She said, what I took from this class that you talked about was that you just told me I need to work harder. Well, I already work X amount of hours a day, and I don't see how I can just work harder. Well, through her filter or her lens, the way that she was seeing it is that she was exhausted. And based off that exhaustion, she was thinking about all the things that if I was adding to her life, it was just going to be more exhausting, as opposed to looking at it as, hey, we want to make you more efficient at the things that you do. And when that happens, you'll actually get more done in less time and get your time back. But it's all in the way that we view it. So the filter that you use is so very important. It's like when you put on glasses that have rose-colored glasses, you're going to see rose-colored things. And make sure that you understand your filter, and the one that you use will be indicative of the results you receive. In verse 5 and 6, the foundation of power, strength, and victory is wisdom, knowledge, and guidance. Let me say this again. This one blew my mind. The foundation of power, strength, and victory, which we all want, right? Power, strength, and victory is wisdom, knowledge, and guidance. So if you want power, strength, victory, you'll look to wisdom, which is the right use of knowledge. You'll get the knowledge, and then you'll look for guidance from people who have actually experienced those things. I mean, this is amazing. Imagine a natural state that way. Understanding your desires without knowledge will create unsavory results. Know the type of filter that you have, and then the foundation of power, strength, and victory is wisdom, knowledge, and guidance. In verse 7, 8, and 9, this one was one of my favorites because one of the guys came up to me that I worked with, and he said, man, that is HNL. And I said, well, HNL is Salvador. Salvador, you know exactly who you are, man. Buscemi. Salvador Buscemi. I want to do a big shout out to you. You're a gangster on LinkedIn. Not only that, but just in business itself, but his presence on LinkedIn is phenomenal. You need to check him out. But he said, HNL, son, HNL. And I said, what is HNL? And he said, whole nother level. And I was like, wait a second, that's not how you spell it. And he just laughed and he's like, yes, it is. Whole nother level, HNL. And you always want to think about, like, with your natural state, if you want to go to a whole nother level, HNL, we've got to put principles in place that have wisdom, knowledge, and guidance. And in my head, I always want to be HNL. I want to be a whole nother level. I don't want to deal with the same things that normal people deal with, but that means that I have to hold myself to a standard that not normal people hold themselves to. And this, what you can find is when you do this, wisdom, knowledge, and guidance, you'll put yourself in a whole nother level. And your natural state can be a whole nother level also. In verse 10 is simply ask yourself, what is your natural state? Like if we have unsavory situations happen, circumstances, and it takes us 10 steps to be able to get back to our natural state, ask yourself before any of these things, what's your natural state? Is your natural state a little bit more tense? Is it a little bit more relaxed? Is it focused? Is it whatever? But the cool thing is with God is, like, you can choose what that natural state is. You could be stressed if you want to, but there's also ways to not be stressed. And what my pops taught me was anytime that I was stressed, I was anxious, I was in those places, it was just because I was carrying things I wasn't designed to carry. And I said, well, what am I designed to carry? And he said, daily bread. Just look to God and ask him what he would have for you to do today, right now, and he'll guide you. And if you listen, then you'll only be carrying the weight of what you need right now and not be so stressed on all the things that you think you should be doing outside of it. In verse 11 and 12, it's asking, have you identified your gifts and are you giving them away? Have you identified your gifts and are you giving them away? Think about that. I think about my brother Rob. I had an episode the other day about him, and I was talking about it, and he's blessed to be a blessing. Have you identified the gifts? Have you sat long enough? Have you turned off everything and sat in and said, what are my gifts? What am I natural at? And am I giving them away to every single person? Jimmy Barbour, you have gifts. You speak life into people. You know, Stacy Edwards, I want to tell you, you have a gift, and I told you this at NiftyCon. Your ability to make other people feel absolutely amazing is a superpower, and if you give that away more and more and more and more and more, what you'll find is that will become something that is a calling card for you. In verse 13, 14, 15, 16 is, you hear it a lot, is just work your land. I get caught up in this at times where I'll think that somebody else's stuff is really cool and, oh man, I want to do that. But it's not for me. So just work your land. You have gifts, you have a purpose, work that purpose, and it's amazing. God will bring so many incredible blessings into your life. In verse 17 and 18 is what comes around goes around, or whatever that saying says. Like, I don't know if it's comes around, goes around, comes around, whatever it is, but we'll always meet up with ourselves. And also, if you do right things, it doesn't mean that it's like apples for apples. I do a good thing, someone does something good for me. No, but it comes around. And make sure that you're doing the right thing at the right time. That'll be able to be in a place where it'll help your natural state, because the more and more that you're striving, that you're stressing on stuff, all the things, it just causes more pressure, and it causes you to be out of your own character. And if you want to be inside of your own character, just realize that you just need to do what's right now. How do we know that? By just staying in communication with God. in verse 19, 20, 21, and 22. Now, I'm paraphrasing on this stuff, but it says they will get theirs. This was a thing that was a lot of solace for me as a kid, because there was times where someone was doing wrong, and I was like, oh, they're doing wrong, but they're not getting caught. They're doing wrong, but they're getting the right result. So I thought in the moment. But just always remember, they'll get theirs, and you'll get yours, depending on the seed that you plant and the seed that they plant. So be conscious of that. In verse 23 through 34, be good to all people, speak truth, make people tired by watching you, take the high road, and be allergic to lazy. 23 through 34 summed it up, and it was incredible. And as I was finishing up with this, is just theory is always good when observing others, their trials. Like when I was observing that dude the other day, I was watching him and I was judging him based off of my circumstances. I had so much judgment on him. I was like, why are you tripping, bro? But I didn't know what went on. It's when we are personally faced with those things that we have the opportunity to evaluate our natural state. And see, even today, I went to record and I didn't have my soundboard on. I could get really mad, which I was here, but God gives us the opportunity to be able to exercise. When we ask for faith, he gives us the opportunity to exercise faith. And I think that he did that on purpose, because I was talking about snapping back into natural state, and he wanted to see where mine was. In Proverbs 24, it shows us that wars are won in peacetime preparation. And if that's true, once we become aware of our natural state, we have the ability to alter it to what we choose. This is easier said than done. The next time challenges arise, which is guaranteed, count how many steps, minutes, hours, or days it takes you to recover back into your natural state. And I invite you, evaluate the natural state now. And if it's a stressed natural state, when you have stress that comes in or circumstances that are unsavory, it's going to make it even more amplified. Get yourself to a natural state. And I find that, like with my brother Rob, I brag about him all the time. But his natural state is unbelievable. I look at Greg Reed, my buddy. His son just had a traumatic brain injury and went into a coma for a couple of weeks, and now is on his road to recovery. Dude is doing amazing. Colt, I absolutely love you. I'm so proud of you, and you're such a huge blessing. But I look at my buddy's natural state when nobody else was watching, one of the top thought leaders in the world in Greg Reed. And his natural state was still in that positive side. He was looking on the positive. He was looking at it. He was truthful with himself, and he just continued to be a blessing to every single person around him. So it's no wonder when challenges arise that he's able to obviously react. It's challenging, but then he snaps back into that natural state, and that natural state is that calm, that peace. And if you want that, then we'll build it on principle-based wisdom as opposed to circumstantial. I hope you had a phenomenal day today with us. I want to thank you so much for listening to Inchstones. Inchstones is a series of small improvements. Kaizen is the word in Japanese, and we have adopted Inchstones, a series of small improvements. Never walk past poor quality. And when you have a series of small improvements and you pile them up, little inchstone, little inchstone, little inchstone, it then becomes the milestone that we're all looking for. So I hope you have a phenomenal day. My name is Kelly Cardenas, and I'm officially off the hot seat. Peace, love, and soul.
Nothing more on my mind. I got to shine, so every day I grind. Work in the morning, work in the evening. We's achieving, cause we believing. It's for certain, we put the work in. We ain't stopped just because it's hurting. Right before your eyes, so it's coming to no surprise to take over